And I walk downstairs. My heart's beating fast. And I'm like, Mom, we speak in Polish. So I'm like, Mama. She goes, yeah, what's going on? And I say, I think I'm going to convert to Judaism. And, she's expecting something way worse. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, you're going to be rich.
Can someone pick up and completely shift their life? Meet Tehila Bollag. Originally from Poland, she grew up practicing Catholicism in Chicago, living life of an American teenage girl, having fun, as you'd imagine, till she realized she wanted something else in life. With the Yontif of Shavuos coming up, we thought it'd be great to air my conversation with Tehila. This episode is powered by the wonderful TorahMates, Bitbean, Twillery, and Ornava. This episode is in memory Le'ilu Nishmas Elimelech Eitan ben Ruvain Halevi, as well as Shimon David ben Yaakov Shleima and Miriam Sarah bas Yaakov Moshe. Be sure to listen to the whole episode. We have a special giveaway going on. Here we go. I'm Yaakov Langer, and you're listening to Inspiration for the Nation. Okay, Mrs. Tehila Bollag. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. There's so much I want to ask you, but could you take us back to which country you're from and kind of like what was your childhood like?
Absolutely. I was born in Warsaw, Poland. That is where the green eyes, blonde hair comes from.
You're the first person I think that I've ever interviewed for, actually maybe a Holocaust survivor. So, okay, so maybe not. Never mind. Go on.
It always comes up at people's Shabbos tables. They ask me, oh, where are you from? Okay, I'm from Chicago because that's why I don't have an accent, because that's where I grew up. But I was really born in Warsaw, but we left there when I was very young. And my parents moved to Chicago, and that's where I grew up.
Is your first memory from Warsaw?
No.
No.
Yeah, I left when we were a baby.
Oh, like mama. Okay.
Yeah, my parents left to live the American dream.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so growing up, you weren't Jewish. Can you tell us about your religious background?
Yeah, everyone's always shocked, by the way, because I think I've integrated very well. And they say, what? You didn't grow up Jewish? I said, no. But I do say I've grown up religious my entire life. Mm. I grew up as a Roman Catholic, and the way I explain it is we're a little bit more machmer than your average Christian. So growing up, I remember ever since I was a young girl, I would go to church. And every Sunday we'd go for 1 hour. And throughout the week, my husband always laughs at this because he's like, wow, you're pretty stark, And I'm like, yeah. Throughout the week, I went to public school. 5 days a week, I'd wake up in the morning, I would pray for about 5-10 minutes, got down on my knees, and we prayed, me and my father. And I would come back from school, and at night we would also pray before we went to bed. On Saturdays, I went to Polish school, and we had 2 hours of Polish lessons. And for 1 hour, we had a nun come in, and she would teach us about religion. So that was my religious life growing up. And then I remember when I was 9 years old, I was learning all of these prayers, because when you're 9 in the Catholic world, you are fine. It's like your bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, technically, So like I always laugh that I did have a bas mitzvah, but it was different. So at 9 years old, I remember I was getting ready to confess my sins to a priest. And what sins does a 9-year-old have? I don't know. Honestly, at some point I was there and I was talking to the priest, and I just started making things up because I didn't know what else to say.
Like fake averos of what you were doing.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't know, and so that was my life growing up. And ever since I was a young girl, my parents had strong values. They really instilled in me to live a religious life. But, I was never the type of person to resent where I came from. I just never connected to it. And growing up, I really tried to connect. I would sit there and I would sit in church and I would open up I call it a siddur, but it's not a siddur. I would open up the prayer book that they had, and I would flip through the pages, and I would try to follow along while sitting in mass. And, it never came, and I never connected.
Is it so vastly different than like going to shul?
Going to church?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty different because in church, it's similar but different. in church, no one says anything really. Everyone who prays, they pray to themselves. Growing up, my family went to church every single Sunday, and I never heard them pray out loud except when we prayed together. But there's a little different customs, Yeah.
It's interesting.
I ate the wafer, said a bracha before. I'm joking.
Fasting around wafers. And then there's also my small knowledge of what happens there is from maybe a movie that I saw when I was younger, they pass around a basket for charity or something like that.
Yes, they pass around a basket. We would give $1 or so for charity, and we'd eat the wafer, and then once in a while they would come around on holidays and they would sprinkle holy water on us.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so at what point, before you started actually thinking oh, maybe I want to be Jewish, do you remember any interactions you had with Jews before your, I guess, journey to become Jewish?
Yeah, so I am going to backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
When I was around 17 years old, I had to get a job. So I started working at 17 because my parents, not only was religion important to them, making money was also important to them, right? For me to be financially stable.
Good American
good
immigrants.
Right. Back then you came to America, they didn't give you a phone,
right.
job, any money,
Right.
So
now.
They really had to work hard. And that is something that my parents ingrained in me ever since I was a young girl. So when I was young, I started working because no one was going to give me anything. And when I started working, I finally saved up enough money to get my own car. So when I was about 17 years old, I told my mom, okay, Mom, I'm going to church. And I never went back. Not because I didn't like it, not because, I resented it, only because I didn't feel like it was right for me to go. But I told my mom I went, so.
Now you have what to confess to the priest.
I know, exactly. But you know what? I never went back. So I guess this is my public confession. I am so sorry. I went off the derech when I was 17 years old. So when I was 17 years old, right, I would circle around in my car. No place to go. I would just drive around for 1 hour because church was at 1 hour. And one of those Sundays, I remember driving around and I had a real conversation with God, because going to church and being religious was very important to my parents growing up. And it wasn't so important to me. So I had a conversation with God and I said, God, I love you and I really want to connect to you, but I don't believe going to church is my way of doing it. And you know what? I'm going to be my own person. I'm going to live life on my own terms. But I'm not going to church and I won't be religious anymore. And that is when I went off the derech. I say, so 17 years old, I started living life on my own terms. And I started working a lot. Growing up, I'd say I was a normal teen, liked to have fun, hang out with my friends. And looking back at my story, at my own personal story, I realized that Hashem placed me in the right place at the right time. I might have, at 17 years old, let go of Hashem or let go of God at the time, but he didn't let go of me.
Could you take us through your life at that point? Because ages, 17 through 22 is when the average American person going, in college and having fun, what were you busy with?
Yeah, so when I was 17 years old, I had to work for everything I wanted in life. So what did I keep busy with? I had 3 jobs. I was a hard worker. I was an entrepreneur. I always make a joke that I was like a colo wife that had 8 kids, trying to support the family because money and financial stability were so important to me. So when I was about 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, I filled my life with work. And I was kind of living life in the fast lane, onto one job, onto the next one, but I still had time to go out with friends. I had a good time and I wasn't looking for meaning or purpose in my life. When I was about 21 years old, I was really living with a society that was based on success on how you dressed, what your car was like, what watch you wore, how much money you spent at place A, B, C. And it was a very pleasure-seeking society, really based on, the parties, there was drinking, that's really how it was. And that's what I was really involved in. So
it's interesting because would you consider at that point, like you, in a way, hitting rock bottom, like looking for the most fun life could give you, and then you're going for it, and then you're like, well, this is it.
You know, you would think so. A lot of people, by the way, still, going out in nightlife industry in Chicago, there's so many bars, there's restaurants, there's so many places to go. And, you see people and you're like, okay, did you hit rock bottom yet? But like, a lot of people that might happen to them. But for me, it didn't happen. I was like, maybe if you were looking at it from a outside perspective, maybe it looked like I was about to, but I never hit rock bottom.
Interesting. That's very interesting.
So that's why, a lot of people, when they find meaning and purpose in this world, is because they see like a revelation or, they go through an experience, something similar, and they want to find more meaning in this world. But that didn't happen to me. I was having a good time. I was not looking for God, but God found me.
Wow.
So when I was 19 years old, I got a job working in Skokie. I don't know if you're familiar with Skokie.
I actually went to college in Skokie.
Exactly.
But it was online. It was online college, so I only actually went there one time. But it's in Chicago.
It's in Chicago, but it's a heavily populated Jewish community.
Right. Yes.
So when I was 19 years old, I remember that was the first time I started meeting Jews. All types of Jews, because I never met a Jew before. I went to public school. No one in my school was Jewish. I only read about them in the textbooks. So when I started working in Skokie, I started hearing about Jews. But back then, a Jew was a Jew. Ever since October 7th, I think we see that Klal Yisrael is very united, and we don't see the differences in us. Back then, as a non-Jew, I met people who maybe didn't keep kosher, who ate cheeseburgers, who kept this one thing called Yom Kippur, and they were proudly Jewish. But it was when I was 22 years old that I befriended people who were Orthodox. But I didn't know they were Orthodox at the time until they religiously started disappearing on Friday nights. And I'm like, what is going on? These were people my age. And while I was heading out on Friday night to go hang out with my friends, my Orthodox friends said, okay, I'm going to spend time with family. So after a while I started to chop. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, something's off here. And then they came to tell me that, hey, we're actually Jewish. And I said, Jews? I know Jews. What's the difference between you and the Jews that I met before? And they said we're Orthodox and we keep this thing called Shabbos. And it's where you spend time with family. And me growing up, the only time I really spent time with family, because my parents were working all the time, was in church, where I didn't really connect, where I didn't love it so much. And I said, that's interesting. Do you enjoy this thing called Shabbos, where you spend time with family? And they said, yeah. But through meeting these people who were Orthodox, I learned about Shabbos, I learned about kosher, eventually I learned about the holidays, and it was very eye-opening for me to see people that were my age with living this different lifestyle.
At what point do you think, hey, maybe that's for me?
So it took a while. So after having friends who were Orthodox, I heard from them about a Kiruv class. So the Kiruv class was for people who were not religious, Jewish, not religious, unaffiliated, and it was for them to learn more about Judaism. So it was eye-opening for me to see these people that I met, and I said, you know what? Let me get into that Kiruv class. So, with anything, you have a friend that knows a friend, it's a Jewish world, you network. So somehow we got in touch with a rabbi who got in touch with the rabbi from the Kiruv class. And they said, hey, I have a friend, can she come? And miraculously, the rabbi said, okay, sure. I usually don't do this, but sure, let her come. If she comes to 6 of my classes, then, if she commits to 6, then she could come. And now I'm like, okay, maybe the rabbi was just trying to get his attendance up. No, I'm joking. But so that was it. I heard about a Kiruv class, and I walked into the Kiruv class, right? But I wouldn't have gone otherwise because, like I said, Hashem really orchestrated everything. He was the director. And the Kiruv class was down the block from my house. I lived in downtown Chicago at the time, and it was down the block from my house. If it was anywhere else, I wouldn't have gone. So I was getting ready for this Kiruv class. So I was getting dressed, and I'm like, okay, Jews, Orthodox Jews. I didn't know what to expect. So I put on my longest skirt, I put on my turtleneck, and it's winter in Chicago, and I'm walking down the block to this class, and I show up, and everyone thinks, oh, the Rebbitzins here. And I'm like, oh, shoot, talk about being overdressed, right? Because everyone was just chill, short sleeves, pants,
right?
So, and I came all tznius. I'm like, okay, shoot, yeah. So that's how I found out really more about Judaism and the deeper meaning behind it. So I went to the Kiruv class in downtown. And then for about 4 weeks, I was learning about Judaism. And I'll never forget the first time I actually experienced Judaism. And that really opened the door for me. So it was Purim time. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, great. Experience Judaism. Purim's the great way to do it. But you know what? I remember I was getting ready for the Purim party. The organization's name is Project 613. They're a big Kiruv organization in Chicago. And the rabbi that runs it is Rabbi Garfinkel. So Rabbi Garfinkel was making an event in somebody's house in West Rogers Park. So here I am as a non-Jew getting ready for my first Purim party, which I know zero to nothing about, but I have a little bit of background. I know what a Hamantashen was at this point, So I remember walking into the doors of the Purim party, and the Rebbitzin opens the doors and she goes, hi, nice to meet you. My husband told me all about you. And it was like God was taking me by the hand and saying, all right, girlfriend, we were broing it up at this point. Let me show you how we have a good time. And my whole life before was a society based on success, how you dress, what car you drove, how much money you have. And I walked into the doors of this person's house who I didn't even know. And I said, whoa, they were successful people. Don't get me wrong, but they didn't have furniture in their living room because they opened it up to host people. And I said, wow, this is what success really is. And then I saw a party, right? Purim party. And it was like Hashem was telling me, all right, girl, now I'm going to show you how we really have a good time and how we take something physical and we bring spirituality into it. And that's what I saw through Purim, even like a glass of wine, right? You say a bracha and you elevate it to something greater. And I had a sense of community, and it was just so amazing to be part of something like that. And I felt so welcomed, and that was really my step into Judaism, was after experiencing that. And then the next morning I woke up with the best spiritual hangover that anyone could ever have. But, after going through that Purim party, I got a little glimpse, a little taste of what Torah and Judaism was. And it really catapulted my life slowly in a different direction.
It's fascinating. And it's very interesting also because I feel, again, I don't know much about, the church and that religion, but from what I understand is that a lot of it is about not getting involved in the physical.
Yes, they're absolutely separate.
Right.
Priest, no wife,
Right, exactly. You can't, this world, you're supposed to be above it. And with Judaism, it's maybe the opposite. It's like the blending of the physical with the spiritual, which you're bringing it out in Purim, which is so different. That's maybe what you were like, oh, that's interesting there.
Yeah, that's what I was drawn to because I'd never seen that before in my entire life. I was drawn to the mitzvot. I was drawn to the physical actions that could bring spirituality. And I never got that in Catholicism. So after my first Purim party, I said, okay, this is good. But then I think this is a part of everyone's story in history. COVID broke out. So COVID broke out, and I still continued doing the Jewish outreach classes. They were on Zoom, and I liked it. I kept going. And then after a while, I said, okay, I started meeting more Jewish people. I made friends in the Jewish community. And slowly but surely, I just felt myself inclined to take on mitzvos, Slowly, my sleeves started getting a little bit longer. I started wearing skirts. I remember the first time I said I'm going to keep fully kosher was I was in my kitchen. And I knew it was a lifestyle that I wanted to pursue, but it came gradually, some people in their life, when they're looking for something, when they're looking for meaning, when they're looking for purpose, it's like, whoa, they have a big revelation of what they're looking for. For me, it just really all came gradually. Hashem took me by the hand and there was a little sprinkle here, a little sprinkle there. So I was more inclined to do mitzvos. And like I said, I was in my kitchen and I said, you know what? I think I want to keep kosher. Let me just try it out. Let me try out to cut out dairy. And then let me try out to cut out meat. Because I lived near a Jewish community. And then I moved closer to the Jewish community, not in the Jewish community, from downtown. And it was easier for me to get food, and kosher food was more accessible. So I'm like, okay, why not? So then I started paying about $18 for a hamburger, which is great.
That's why there wasn't furniture by the house, because we have no money to spend on furniture because we're buying on food. Well, at this point, what are your parents thinking or saying? Did you have a conversation with them? Are they just noticing you, in quotes, dressing with Mertznias and being like, something's up? So
my mom, I was nervous because I've heard horror stories where people told their parents and it was so hard for them. But you know what? I remember when I told my mom that I was converting to Judaism. She was downstairs doing laundry and I walked downstairs. My heart's beating fast. And I'm like, Mom... we speak in Polish. So I'm like, Mama? She goes, yeah, what's going on? And I say, I think I'm going to convert to Judaism. And, she's expecting something way worse. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, you're going to be rich. I'm like, oh, okay. That was not the response I was looking for, but whatever. It's a good response.
Right, yeah, definitely.
I was cracking up. Wow. It was so funny. So she took it pretty well. My father also, he wanted to be a priest before he met my mother, actually. So I was, thinking he would have more to say on me converting. But when I told him, he goes, you know what? I have no problem with Jews. I think you guys do too much, but I have no problem, no issue with them. So I think they just really wanted me to be happy. But yeah, and Baruch Hashem, my mom, she's so accommodating. She's very welcoming. She loves my husband. And she even came to stay by us in our apartment for a few days. And, I'm like, Mom, can you just please use plastic? Okay, no problem. Can you please don't put this dish here? No problem. And when she went grocery shopping, she knows how to look for the kosher symbols. And like I said, Baruch Hashem, Hashem was with me every step of the way. And I really feel so lucky.
Interesting. Now, we'll be right back to this week's episode, but have you heard about TorahMates? Have you ever wanted to feel like you're making a bigger impact in this world? It's an amazing program that offers you a lifetime of schusim with just 30 minutes a week. Yes, you heard that right. Only 30 minutes a week. Okay, so all you need to do is pick up the phone once a week and call your TorahMate. It's not hard, and it can add so much to another Jew's life, especially to someone who is yearning to understand Yiddishkeit more deeply. Just by being yourself and sharing with what you already know, you can make a huge difference. You can even choose the topic you want to learn, ensuring it's something you're comfortable with and you're familiar with. Sign up today at TorahMates.org and start making a difference. And if you're looking for another great way to support this incredible organization, check out the Oorah auction. Yeah, the famous Oorah auction. The Oorahthon is tonight, so you only have a few hours left to enter. You can win from over $650,000 in prizes, and every ticket is still only $5. Your $5 can go a long way in supporting Kirev. Don't miss out. Enter now at oorahauction.org or by calling 1-877-7-AUCTION. Remember, just 30 minutes a week with TorahMates can change lives, and your support through Oorah Auction can make an even bigger impact. So Sign up for TorahMates, enter the auction, and be a part of something truly special. Now we're going to get back to this week's episode. But first, I want to take a moment to tell you about Bitbean, the best software company out there. If you're looking for a partner who truly understands your business and helps you scale, Bitbean is the way to go. Let me share a quick story. A leading healthcare company came to Bitbean with a big challenge. They needed a secure, efficient platform to manage patient data and streamline the operations. Bitbean's team got right to work, understanding every detail of their needs and pain points. The result? Bitbean designed a custom scalable solution that transformed their entire operation. The healthcare company saw a 40% increase. Yes, you heard that right. 40% increase in operational efficiency and significantly improved patient care. Thanks to Bitbean, they are now serving more patients faster and more accurately than ever before. One of the best parts about Bitbean is that they are people who know software that gets people. They understand the human side of technology and how it can make a real difference in your business. Whether you're in healthcare, finance, retail, or any other industry, Bitbean has the expertise to help you succeed. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, check out Bitbean. They're not just about building software, they're about building success. Visit bitbean.com to learn more. That's bitbean.com. Now, back to this week's episode. Was the gay risk process harder than you thought it would be, easier than you thought it would be, what you thought it would be?
Yeah, so after Purim, I started taking on more mitzvos. And then when, I think Rosh Hashanah time, Rosh Hashanah time was when I said, okay, you know what? I want to become Jewish, because I remember spending Yantif at the same person's house I went to the Purim party for. And I remember my first time going to shul, and I didn't know what to expect. And so I make coffee in the morning, I go to shul, I'm walking down the streets of West Rogers Park in Chicago. And before I even started converting, it was so uncomfortable because I'm like walking down the street and you get anxious, like, oh gosh, they know, any person you see, it's like, they know I'm not Jewish, they know, you know what I'm saying? But any person that walked past me, they're like, good Shabbos, good Yantif. And then I'm like, oh, phew, and then I was like, started skipping to school, like skipping to shul. I was like having a farbrengen with myself. I'm like, this is so fun. Judaism's awesome. Any person I saw was like, good Shabbos, good Yantif. And then I got to shul on Rosh Hashanah, and it was my first time in shul, and I had no idea what was going on. And I opened my art scroll siddur, and the shul was also outside in a tent because it was COVID. So the next person standing next to me or sitting next to me was 10 feet away, so I was really alone with Hashem. And Rosh Hashanah time was when I had no idea what was going on, when a time where I could have been completely lost is the time where I felt most embraced by Hashem. And I felt like he was just giving me a hug. And my whole entire life up until, I found Judaism, I wanted a connection with Hashem, but I had no idea how to build a relationship with him. So experiencing that and going through Rosh Hashanah, I remember after Yantif was over, I was in my car and I was beaming and I said, oh my gosh, I want to become Jewish, because I finally found out how to build a relationship with Hashem. I had that connection all along, and he didn't forget about me when I was 17 years old. He led me to this point, and I said, I want to become Jewish. So the way I did it was I called the Bitbean. I'm like, you know what, whatever, what's the worst that could happen? Dial their phone number and it's ringing. Ring, ring, no answer. Okay, phew. I left a voice note. I'm so Jewish. Voice note. No, I left a voice mail. Yeah. And I said, hi, my name is so-and-so. I want to become Jewish. So let me know. Bye. Click. And so I'm patiently waiting for a call, and a nice lady calls me back from the CRC, which is in Chicago. And, she asked me some questions, and then I had my first meeting with the Bitbean. But in between that, I had to get a sponsoring rabbi. Unfortunately, some rabbis said no, which I totally understand. And the Gabrus process, I think the only hard part for me was that there's so much uncertainty. You don't know when it's going to finish, and you don't know if they'll accept you in the end. You could go through a year, 2 years, 3 years, And at the end, they could just be like, sorry, we're not converting you. So that was the biggest challenge for me during the whole entire process, was not knowing. And even though like I knew a shtickle Yiddish, and even though like I kept Shabbos, and even though I kept kosher, and even though that like I thought I knew so much, and even other Rebbeim were like, yeah, don't worry, you'll be done in 6 months, 7 months. You know, it's not up to them. And people who give you this confidence, you get shut down like, oh, but I know so much. Oh, but I'm so integrated in the community. Oh, but I'm so from, you know, like it doesn't matter. It really comes down to the bottom line, which is the Beis Din. So that was the most challenging part for me.
The unknown.
The unknown.
I'm so curious because there's a law that a non-Jew is not allowed to keep Shabbos. So while you're on the process, when you're basically keeping Shabbos, but you're doing a malacha to not keep it, what malachas did you do?
You know what? One thing that I do regret is I really wish I was a better Shabbos goy, because people would ask me like, oh, you're not Jewish, so you could pour water in the urn or turn the urn on, or maybe turn this light on. You know, I remember once I was walking my dog, and in my neighborhood, I had a dog, by the way. I named her Matzah. I was going through like, you know, I want to be Jewish phase.
Right.
So I'm walking Matzah through Lincolnwood, which is where I lived at the time, Jewish community, on Shabbos, Friday night. Sorry, I was walking her on Friday night. And then somebody that I know, no, not somebody that I know, but somebody who was hosting a meal that I knew, one of their guests was walking around the block. And they stopped me and they said, hey, the rabbi left a book in his car. Would you mind? I don't know if he said, would you mind? He was just hinting, but I knew. But I was so nervous because I've heard that the Beis Din, like, I don't know, you know,
they find out.
So I was like, oh my gosh, is this a test? Is this not? You know,
gosh,
I wasn't sure.
Like a rabbi with like listening into the conversation with like headphones.
Yeah, exactly. So I was so nervous. I'm like, oh no, sorry, you know, like good Shabbos. And but you know, they probably didn't realize that, oh, you know, whatever. But so I was always nervous about that. But you know what? My first meeting ever, the reason why I didn't break Shabbos that time to get the book for the rabbi, even though I was not Jewish, is because I kept a full Shabbos. And I want to go ask the Beis Din this, because when I had my first meeting with them, they asked me if I kept a full Shabbos. And if the CRC is watching this, I am coming to your office this week to clarify. But this is what they told me, that I was on Zoom with them and I said, I'm keeping a full Shabbos, you know, but I do one malacha because I'm not Jewish. And they look at me and they're like, who told you that? And I'm like, everybody, I don't know, you know, because I was so nervous, because everyone tells you that.
Is that not the rule?
I know, exactly. Is that not the rule? But the Beis Din said to me on my first meeting, everyone is different. But to me, they said, no, I'm supposed to keep a full Shabbos.
Really?
Yes. So I kept a full Shabbos ever since they told me that, which was January 2021. So
why all that? What part you want a clarification from the CRC of like, what's the deal with that?
Because so many Rebbeim also say, I didn't know at the time. I didn't know how to quote sources or Gemara, you know?
Right. No, it's a good question. I was pretty confident before here that non-Jews not allowed to keep Shabbos, but...
Yeah, so everyone tells me that. And I said, you know what? No, I kept a full Shabbos, and everyone is always surprised.
Right.
And I'm surprised, and I still don't know what to say. So I will get back to you.
Yes, please.
Look out for part 2.
That's very interesting. Okay, so it's very interesting. Okay, so... as you're going through the process, fine. The unknown is difficult. What's the feeling like once like that moment, like you're full Jew now? Like, does it get more exciting? Does it get maybe less exciting? Like where does life go after that?
Okay, so right after I finished my Geirus, I finished May 30th, 2022. So it's pretty recent. So it's really exciting that we're talking about this. Yeah. So I'm pretty new. And I finished my Geirus and everyone said, okay, go to Israel, Mazel Tov. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, a little backstory. So I lived in Chicago. That's where I grew up. That's where I did my Geirus. That's where I was very immersed in the community there, the Jewish community. My conversion finished May 30th in 2022. So that was around Shavuos time. And the last month of my conversion, I didn't know I was going to convert that month, but because, like I said, the Bezdin could just say, no, sorry, you're not becoming Jewish at any time. But so the last month was May, and I was almost finished with my conversion. I asked my rabbi if I could move to New York. Why did I want to move to New York? It's because I wanted to be a part of something called the Olami House, which is a house for Bali Tshuva women who are post-seminary and they can't go back to their parents' house because obviously their parents are not religious. So they come to a house where they have community. And so I asked my rabbi to be part of that house. So here I am. I packed up everything that I knew in Chicago. I left not only was I leaving my whole entire life to become Jewish, I also was leaving my family. I left my friends. I left my job to move to New York to pursue a better life religiously, to be part of a community. In Chicago, I didn't even know people who were my age, single, like it's a more family oriented community. So I moved into New York to be part of this Olami house. And when I moved in there, I had to fly back to Chicago to finish my Geirus. So there was back and forth with the Bezdin, and they said, okay, after Pesach, give us a call. We are going to schedule the day where you finished your conversion. And that was the day that, I have to go to the mikvah. So when I finished my conversion, there was back and forth with the rabbis, with the Bezdin. Something happened, and they finally called me in and they said, okay, so let's go. We're going, you're going to dunk. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm so excited. But it really took some time before I got there. And the day that I finished my conversion was a Wednesday, and Shavuos was that Friday. So really, while Klal Yisrael was counting down the weeks, right, to get their very own Torah, I was counting up to get my very own Torah as well. And I finished my conversion on Wednesday, and Shavuos was that Friday. And really, like, Hashem timed everything so perfectly. And then Mazel Tov, right? I'm a Jew. So after I finished, everyone said, Mazel Tov, now Israel. And I'm like, what? I just moved to New York. I can't go to Israel. So after 2 months of living in the Olami house in New York, because I was surrounded by Rebbitzins, I was, had girls in the house that were davening in the morning. We had shiurim, and I said, I think I could go to Israel. Because up until then, I lived alone. I did my own thing. I never lived with roommates. I can't fathom leaving the country and going to a place I'd never been before to study Torah. But I ended up doing it. So I moved to Israel, and that's where I spent 7 months at Neve Yerushalayim, going to seminary. At
that point, were you thinking you're going to Israel potentially forever?
No, just for seminary.
You always knew it was for seminary. Okay.
It was such a hard process because intentionally I wanted to go for 3 months. I ended up going for 7. But I remember I cried my first night there because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. But it ended up being the best decision of my whole entire life, because when you're converting, your entire mission is, okay, I'm going to be Jewish. I want to be Jewish. I need to be Jewish. But then once you're a Jew, it's like Mazel Tov, and you're like, okay, what type of Jew am I? So I had to go and find myself again, and I figured out where I was comfortable in and what type of Jew I wanted to be.
One of my favorite moments from the entire interview is coming up. But first, let's talk about something that's going on to revolutionize your wardrobe. It's the Air Suit by Twillory, the best suit you'll ever buy. Everyone is stopping me on Shabbos. This suit will change your life. Imagine a suit that's as comfortable as your favorite pair of pajamas, but sharp enough for any business meeting or Shabbos. That's exactly what the Air Suit offers. It's crafted with the most breathable fabric, so you'll stay cool and comfortable all day long, no matter what your day throws at you. But it's not just about comfort. The Air Suit looks incredible too. With a sleek, modern design, you'll feel confident walking into any room, whether you're heading to a Shabbos meal, or important meeting, a wedding, or just want to style up your game. The Air Suit has you covered. And Here's something special for our listeners. Twillory is giving you an exclusive $18 off your AirSoup purchase. Just use the code word INSPIRE at checkout. That's right, $18 off for looking your best. Of course, this is for anyone who is a new customer at Twillory. Don't settle for anything less. Upgrade to the AirSoup by Twillory today and experience the perfect blend of comfort and style. Remember, that's code INSPIRE for $18 off at Twillory.com. Stay sharp and stay comfortable with Twillory. It's funny because like people on Shabbos ask me like, where do you get that? I say Twillory. Then I'm like, wait, could I tell them to use the code word INSPIRE for $18 off? Because like it's kind of like an ad on Shabbos. I don't know. I'll ask my local Orthodox rabbi, but totally stop asking me on Shabbos where I got it. Ask me during the week. Twillory.com. Get the AirSoup, $18 off, code word INSPIRE. Now, I want to tell you about the incredible opportunity to make a real difference in the lives of countless girls and women. Oorahthon is launching their Never Give Up on a Soul charity campaign, and they need our help to transform lives. In a world where hope can seem sometimes feel out of reach, Oorahthon offers support, guidance, and renewed sense of purpose. Founded with the mission to provide a nurturing environment for personal growth, Oorahthon empowers individuals through education, counseling, and community programs. We're aiming to raise $1 million during this crucial campaign, and every dollar you donate will be matched. Yes, doubling your impact. These funds will enhance existing programs, introduce new initiatives, and ensuring that no soul seeking help is ever turned away. Rabbi Wallerstein Oliver Shalom, the founder of Oorahthon, believed that every soul was worth saving. With your support, we can continue to provide the love, care, and guidance that he taught us. Together, we can ensure that no one is ever left to struggle alone. The Never Give Up on a Soul campaign runs from June 5th to June 7th. Every donation counts twice as much thanks to our generous matcher. So please visit charity.com/Oorahthon. Oorahthon is spelled OHRNAAVA. Of course, you can see the link in the show notes, and donate now. Your gift will be double, but more importantly, you can be saving a young girl or woman's life. Let's come together to make a profound impact. Remember, every dollar counts and every soul is worth saving. Thank you for your support. Oh, and if you're watching this after June 7th, please help Oorahthon. You could go to their website, you could donate. But if you're watching before, charity.com/Oorahthon, open your hearts. Now back to this week's episode. It's very interesting because it is very layered. And when you start from like a new beginning you're not like a baby where you're growing up in a certain society. Like, no, like you don't really at all know, do you want to be modern Orthodox? Do you want to be Hasidish? Do you want like, there's a trillion like, and within that it's so layered and maybe someone who's not Orthodox or someone who's not Jewish, like they maybe won't fully understand it, but the more you like get into it, so Israel for you is like a very big discovery of finding what kind of Jew you wanted to be.
Yeah, but you know what? I had a pretty good idea because my father-in-law always asks this question. He goes, well, why weren't you Hasidish? Why weren't you Sephardi? Why did you pick, this type with this minchagim? And I said, you know what? Because the community I was in, it was an Ashkenaz-based community. Mm-hmm. And also my Rabbi Garfinkel and his wife, Suri Garfinkel, they were really my inspiration, and I was surrounded by them. And like I say, I grew up in their home, but and they were the type of people that I was associated with, and that was my path. So I didn't, drift so far, but yeah.
I want to go back a little to the difference. Like, what in Catholicism did you not have that you now have with Judaism?
So growing up Catholic, it was different because back then I really felt that being Catholic was a hobby. It was just fitting God into my schedule when it's convenient for me. And Judaism is revolving my whole entire life around Hashem. Any decision that I make, all of my relationships, any money that I spend, how I spend it, any food that I eat, it all really comes down to the bottom line, which is Hashem. And in any other religion, well, in Catholicism where I grew up, it was just really a hobby.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I have a weird question for you. Do you know your grandparents or their parents' background, like relationship in Warsaw with the Jewish people?
So, funny story. When I was learning about Judaism and I had Jewish friends, I said, you know what? Maybe there's a chance I'm Jewish. So I took because you have to check.
Right.
So I took a 23andMe test and it said 98% European. And then it said 2% Ashkenaz Jewish.
Really?
Yeah. So there's 2% in there. So during that time, I went to go visit my great grandmother, she was in a town called Prudnik, Poland. This was honestly 5 years ago. And so I got on a plane. I'm like, oh my gosh, there might be a chance, I have to go talk to my great bubby because she's still alive. I have to catch her, before she goes. Sorry, that's so morbid to say, but really I was like, okay, maybe there's a chance that she's Jewish, that we're Jewish, and I have to go find out. So I get on a plane, I fly into Warsaw, and I drive with my uncle, who still is in Poland, to Prudnik, which is near the border of Czechoslovakia. So I get there and I'm so excited and I say, Grandma, in Polish, it's Babcia. I'm like, Babcia, how are you? I hope you're well. She was in her 80s at the time. My family's very young. And I go to her and I'm like, can you tell me about the war? Because this is the first time I asked her about it because it was relevant to me. And I said, can you tell me about the war? I was hoping she would say we hid Jews in our basement, or yes, your great grandmother lit Shabbos candles. And she said, no one's Jewish in our family. I'm sorry. And during the war, we went to Germany to work. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Okay, there goes that. So I still had to convert. But I did inquire about Judaism to my great grandparents, but yeah, unfortunately not. But you know what? They say that every convert's neshama was at Har Sinai. Me, you, we were there and standing side by side, maybe, and we all received the Torah. And when I converted to Judaism, it didn't matter if anyone was Jewish in my family or not. It really felt like my neshama was saying, Tehila, thank you. Thank you for bringing me home.
That's very nice. So now that you're Jewish for 2 years, almost exactly, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
So the biggest challenge for me, life, the Bezdin also asked me this question, what is challenging for you? Mm-hmm. And I said, Judaism is always going to be challenging because you're always tested. Rebbetzin Young Grice wrote a book saying life is a test. And she talks about how challenges in life are there to make you a better person, right? We're all tested in all different sorts of ways. When I was converting, there wasn't a time ever when I said, oh, this mitzvah is too much. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, that's too hard. Oh, that's too time consuming. It wasn't like, oh, I have to do this still, because when you're doing the right thing and you believe it's the right thing, nothing stops you from doing it, and you're motivated and you want to do it. So that's how I looked at all of my challenges.
But there's got to be, I'm saying mitzvahs and Averis aside.
Fine.
No, but maybe again, I'll give you a dumb example. Maybe okay, wearing a sheitel is very difficult, or the way the culture goes, it's just so different. And so that curve is a lot harder to deal with. I don't know.
That's just my personality. I'm like, you know what? I'm doing it. It's fine, and every time it's not like, oh, I have to. It's, oh, I get to do that, because that's just my outlook on Judaism and on everything. It's not like, oh, it's annoying. It's like, oh, wow, I get to build my relationship with God by washing my hands, because that's what really drew me, is the physical actions, right? It's the mitzvos. And honestly, through the mitzvos, like I said, I came from a completely secular life where everything's all about physical pleasure, materialism. And, I could take this physical and make it spiritual, and I could grow with it, and it could really make an impact on me because I saw it. I even see videos of myself when I was doing social media and stuff like that, from before I started converting to after I finished to now. And I still constantly see a change. And that change is like the mitzvos. They really change you as a person. And I really feel like a changed individual. Is there something that's hard? It's always going to be a challenge, but I don't look at it as, oh, I have to. It's like, oh, I get to do that,
What was the from dating like for you?
Okay, so my frum dating life was actually short-lived, Baruch Hashem. And I joke with all my friends that like I really got a frum upbringing, you know, like I grew up in the Jewish community, I went to seminary, I came back, I got married, you know?
Right.
So the dating process started in seminary. I was months away, 2-3 months away from coming back home. And, you know, I started dating because what do girls talk about in seminary? Oh, you know, shidduch dating and meeting shadchanim. So I'm like, okay, shoot, I'm getting FOMO. So maybe I should meet a shadchan. So I met a shadchan, whatever. And, you know, I met a few others while they were in town in Israel. And the dating process was really short-lived, thank God. And I didn't even end up meeting my husband through a shadchan. The way that we met was through a friend. And the way that happened was my husband knew somebody that he was friends with, and his wife knew me from Chicago. But the only reason she knew me from Chicago is because I helped open up a restaurant there. It was called Novo Chicago. Shout out to them. And the way she knew me was through that restaurant. You know, and Hashem made me get that job to meet this person because other than that, she wouldn't have known me. So my husband heard about me through another friend, and then he asked his friend to, you know, inquire and set it up. So it was honestly all through Hashem.
That's very nice. What's the contrast like? Because I met your husband, he's a very nice guy, but like I don't like I know his family like from Flatbush. And like a Flatbush guy marrying, you know, you're originally from Warsaw, you're Gioris. Like it's such an interesting mix over there. Obviously, clearly it's working and it's great.
Yes,
but like
absolutely.
I'm sure, like you, like the classic. I don't know him, but like I'm sure the classic from guy growing up in Flatbush. Not all, but like davening is amazing. We love it, but it's also like we so take it for granted. We're like, yeah, you daven, like you have to. It's like you get in trouble if you don't. And then it's like, what? It's such an opportunity to connect with God. Like that fusion is probably very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, you know, Baruch Hashem, I was so blessed with the best husband in the entire world. And he's so supportive. You know, there's some things that I'm not perfect, I still struggle with, and he helps me. He's very growth oriented, you know, but it was funny for him. When we were dating, he's like, okay, so like, what's the deal? You know, like what's going on? You chose this, you know, and he's so fascinated. And he's so supportive in a sense that I've been sharing my journey, little bits and pieces of it on social media and in person, doing speeches. And, you know, he's so supportive in that sense that every time he comes, it's always fascinating for him and he loves it. So, and I have the best in-laws also. They're very great. So I was so blessed in that sense.
That's awesome. Out of the 613 mitzvahs.
Yeah.
It's always more interesting to ask someone who, you know, chose Judaism this question. Is there one that like means a little more to you than the others? That you like more, that you enjoy?
I always made a joke. I had a conversion party and I couldn't get enough balloons that say like Mazel Tov or like Tehillah is Jewish or something. So I got balloons that say 613. And I'm like, okay, maybe I should do 612 as a joke, but I'm joking. I love all the mitzvos and they really shaped me to be the person that I am today. The one that I love most is to emulate Hashem, to walk in his ways, because it's so easy, you know, from A to Z, from when we wake up in the morning to when we go to sleep. That's something that I could constantly do.
That's a good answer. Is there a story, maybe it happened in your life, maybe you heard it or read it or someone said it by speech, that gives you chizuk, that gives you inspiration?
I think it's not a story, but it's personal experiences from spending Shabbos at families' homes. And every Shabbos, I was so fortunate enough to meet new people. But by the way, I think Shabbos is like the craziest thing. I remember when we were in seminary and it's like, okay, you're going to this random person's house and you're sleeping there and you never met them before. And, you know, you just like talk with them Friday night, they feed you, you sleep there and then you leave and you never see them again. You know, like it's so bizarre to me, the whole idea.
That makes sense, yeah.
It really is. But you know what? I did the same thing when I was converting in Chicago. It was so uncomfortable for me to reach out to people. Hey, are you hosting? And I think a lot I really feel for the singles community who, don't live at home and they have to reach out and, from singles community and spend Shabbos somewhere. I understand. I feel you guys because it's so uncomfortable. You have to invite yourself to people's houses and some people are so happy to have you, but you also get let down. But the one thing that inspired me is going to a family for Shabbos because when you're not from and you grow up not from, you go to people's houses and you pick, okay, I want that. I don't want that. I want this dip, not that dip, But what was really inspiring for me was to see my rabbis and my rebbitzin Shabbos table and their kids and the way they treated each other and the respect they had for each other and how they really brought Kedusha to that day. So it was really inspirational.
That's awesome. If there's one person from history, it could be someone who passed away recently or going up to Adam that you could spend an hour with. Who would you spend an hour with and what would you talk about with them?
Okay, so funny story. Again, the Bezdin asked me this question.
They did?
On my last
meeting. You think they watch the show?
By the way, I know. By the way, so they asked me this question on my last meeting because, I'm so versed, halacha, test me, kashrus, Shabbos, and I was so ready to answer everything. And then they asked me this question. I was so thrown off because I'm wait, I didn't study for this one. So what did I say? I want to tell you what I said, and then I want to tell you what I think now. I forget. I really just named who I knew off the top of my head because, a third grader at that point could put me to shame in chumash, because back then it was just halacha, Shabbos, kashrus. What did I say? I said, okay, who's a person I want to meet? A Jewish person in history? I said, Noach. And they're like, he wasn't Jewish? I'm oh,
failed.
man. You're
a guy forever now.
I'm oh no, I failed the test. But whatever, I just said whatever I knew. So honestly, I always think about it as in terms. Everyone's always Moshe Rabbeinu, and I'm yeah, Moshe Rabbeinu would be cool. But sometimes I met certain rabbis, and I'm I would go to their shir. I wouldn't do a one-on-one with them.
Yeah, it could be intense,
so I was thinking Avram Avinu because he was into Kiruv and he had that personality where he could just speak to anyone. So I think he would be very easy to speak to, and he's. My name is Tehila Bas Avram Avinu. That's what it says on my conversion documents.
Right.
So yeah.
Wait, hold on. Tehila was your name before?
No, Tehila was not my name before. I picked my name.
You picked your name. Why Tehila?
Yeah.
Why did you go with Tehila?
So I picked Tehila because I think the connection came after, but I initially picked it just because I liked it. Everyone's always expecting this inspirational story.
Oh, listen.
I had a dream and Hashem told me to pick Tehila.
When you went to your great-grandmother, she said, I don't know, but name yourself Tehila.
Yeah.
I can't explain why.
I wish something like that happened. I would lay in bed at night and I would scroll through Jewish girl names. And then I said, okay, this one, yeah, maybe Eliza. Oh, maybe Amuna. Okay, I'm Tehila. I loved Tehila. And I really liked it. And now I'm Tehila.
Well, I don't even know. I'm going to sound crazy. What does Tehila mean?
Tehila means praise.
Praise. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Praise, glory. In Hebrew, they say Tehila, which sounds way better, but whatever.
I hear that. So I want to end off with this question. And if you think there's a particular question that I should ask you that didn't come up on the show, please let me know. If you could talk to someone listening to this that grew up from and maybe feel jaded, because I do think it's a very common thing that, if you grow up with maybe the best thing in the world, right? That's what we believe growing up, being able to be an Orthodox Jew, what a chus, what a merit. But we kind of get used to it and our whole life we're used to it. Not advice, but what pep talk would you give to them who's kind of going through it and not really appreciating what they have?
I would say to them that, look, I've been through it. I've been there. I've done that. I'm not some rabbi giving you a musar shir on how to live your life. And the life that I came from, it was meaningless. There's no purpose to it. And yeah, it may seem fun and extravagant and looks like a good time. But at the end of the day, there's no meaning. There's no purpose to it. And I think that the Torah is a precious, precious gift from Hashem. And through the Torah, I myself learned how to live and become the best person that I could be. And you have that gift. So you need to wake up and you need to see it because, like I said, I've been there, done that, and there's nothing there.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Whew, what an episode. If you got this far in the episode, please drop the words "welcome home" in the comments. We want Tehila to know that she's home. And what I love about talking to converts is that they very clearly had a decision that led them to become a Jew. It's such a great wake-up call to people like myself. We often feel like we didn't choose this life of Orthodoxy being from, but you can be from and choose even more so this path. Don't just go with the flow. Be like Tehila and connect with Hashem. Please help Oorahthon, charity.com/Oorahthon. Purchase the ear suit and use code word INSPIRE for $18 off at Twilio.com. Call our friends at Bitbean today and really step up your company's software and become a TorahMate or support Oorahthon or do both and become an inspiration for the nation. You could do that. Okay. Now for our giveaway, the rules are simple. One lucky winner will win a $500 Amazon gift card. And Amazon, if you haven't noticed, they sell a lot of good stuff on Amazon. All you have to do is find an episode of Inspiration for the Nation that you love. Share a link to it on your WhatsApp status or your Instagram story or Twitter, whichever social media you use, along with the reason why you enjoyed the episode. That's it. You are allowed up to 5 entries if you share 5 different episode links and what they meant to you. Once shared, please screenshot it and send your screenshot to our Living L'Chaim WhatsApp number, which is 914-222-5513, 914-222-5513. Of course, we'll have a link that you could just tap on it in the show notes, and then it'll like populate a message so you can just message us directly so it's easier. The contest is now live, and you can see it in the description below for more details. The winner will be drawn June 8th, so get your entries in. Oh, and only 3 people joined as of now, so I'm not kidding. If you join, you'll, as of now, have a 25% chance of winning the $500 gift card. Good luck and l'chaim. And lastly, if you love what we do here, please help us continue by sponsoring an episode at livingl'chaim.com/sponsor. Yeah, we could use your help, and it goes a long way. L'chaim. Living L'Chaim.